Hello, welcome back to the podcast Journey to Well. My name is Hannah. Today we have a deep conversation, and these are one of my favorite conversations to have. So, Kris Land is joining us. He's also a 6'2" reflector, which we've talked about in human design. Reflectors make up about 1% of the population. So, what a fun perspective to have from you, Kris. The award winning author, he wrote a book called The Infinity Within, a visionary creator, really bridging spiritual awakening, healing, conscious creation. So, these are all things that we're going to touch upon today. And it will be a really fun conversation if you are a deep thinker and want to talk about healing and fear in different perspectives than maybe we've talked about on the podcast before. So, Kris, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You know that I love to allow my guests to introduce themselves. So, who are we speaking with today? Who is Kris?
Hello, Anna. Thank you for having me here. Who is Kris? Well, I grew up in North Dakota, kind of an introvert or geek type kid. And since then, I've been a serial entrepreneur. I've had different things happen in my life that would be considered not normal. And those things were um, loud enough or not something that could be just like excused as, oh, it was imagined or it was make believe or something like this. These were things that happened that affected reality for me.
Mm.
And then spent a lot of time studying theologies growing up and became an author about 5 years ago. Even though I had some bunch of different ideas on what to write about, and the Infinity Within was actually started 40 plus years ago. Um, I hired a ghostwriter to help me write it. I had all the concepts and ideas from a thing that happened in my life that put me into a deep depression, and then came up with all the concepts. Hired a ghostwriter, and the ghostwriter kept wanting to make it her own book and add her own stuff. And so I fired the ghostwriter, and I put all the notes for the book into a filing cabinet. And then met my wife in San Diego, and she had a somewhat of a challenging childhood. So she asked me lots of questions about my way of looking at life.
Wow.
And finally, in the beginning of 25, said, "You need to finish this book. It will help everybody." She said it really helped her, and it's helped her friends. And so she said, "You need to finish it." So in 25, I spent 3 solid months. I found all my notes, took all my notes, and wrote the book.
Wow. What a good woman. Well, I'm grateful for her so we can talk about this book and learn from you. And I'm grateful for her pushing you a little bit. And I love your story because when we first connected, really interesting background of entrepreneurship and owning business, founding companies, and then being very successful, finding that quote definition of success, right? Like when we talk about success, a lot of people's definition includes financial success. And I actually love talking about success because for me, that does not mean financial success. It's not at the top of my list. And I think to live a successful life, it's who we are surrounding ourselves with and what we're spending our time doing, and if it's lighting us up and making us happy. But so, I mean, similar to you, I don't want to steal your story, but tell us a little bit about that journey from finding, again, that kind of quintessential definition of success very young, very early in life, and where that left you. And then we'll get into the encounters and all of that that kind of found in the
Sounds
book.
good. Yeah, so I started working in junior high selling Apple II computers. And let's see, it would have been the beginning year of high school, I think. A gentleman named Robin bought his first Apple II from me. This will date me a bit. And the floppy drive had just come out for the Apple II, and he wanted to do accounting software for his third generation farming family. And I knew how to program, and he knew what he needed. And so we kind of put together a little company, and was called computer development, and he told me what to write, and I wrote. And we created the software, and he used it for his farm, and then we were very fortunate to sell it, and made a fair amount of money. And so that was my first company and sale of a company, which was fantastic, except that it put me in a deep depression.
Mm.
Um, at the time, I didn't understand why. After analyzing the whole thing and hearing stories about how people win the lottery, and a lot of them, it destroys their lives, I kind of understood at least one vantage point of why or how that happened for me. And that was that I had a set of goals that were very um, commercially told us. In other words, how to be successful, you have to have earn a bunch of money, do a company, do these things. And I'd done them all at a very young age and I had no idea what I was going to do next. So I kind of blew all the goals that I thought I was supposed to have and had no direction of where I was going to go next.
Wow.
And through that, three things kind of drove me to the creation of the Infinity Within, which originally the book was going to be called The Soul Path.
Mm.
And what drove me was the first thing was I kind of scrambled out and created three goals that I can always work towards, never achieve. And that was to have fun, learn, and do neither the harm or impedance of others. And with those three things, I kind of just kept scratching up. The
Mm.
next thing that was pivotal was my theology background and learning and the kind of the weird things that happened to me growing up, and then combined with I got hired at a bank in San Diego. My boss's name was Chris, and he was a tried and blue atheist.
Mm.
And even though I have zero difficulties with people wanting to believe whatever they want to believe, for him, for me, it didn't sit right. So I tried to figure out a way that I could get him to think about it differently.
Mm.
And I ended up with four questions. And those four questions kind of show that all the benefit is in believing we have a soul, whether we do or not. And all the downside is in believing we don't have a soul, whether we do or not.
Mm.
And after asking him these four questions, it kind of shifted his way of looking at things. But that left me with a question. And that is, what is a soul?
Mm.
I've now kind of convinced myself and Chris that we have one. Great. What is it? What are we doing here? What's the deal?
Yeah.
And so because I don't leave questions unturned in my kind of engineering way of looking at things, I started digging into, okay, so what is a soul? Well, if you go to theology side of things and you go from all the way from the Egyptians through the Bible, through Buddhism, through all kinds of them, they kind of all say the same thing in different ways, and that is that we are the children of God.
Mm.
Okay, great. What does that mean? And then you've got things like Jesus saying to his disciples, he says, you're going to do everything I've done, that meaning parting the seas, healing people, and much more. And there's other chapters and verses that, and I'm using the Bible as a reference, not to pick it out of all the other theologies. It's just the most prominently read book.
Right.
And there's chapters and verses that say not only are we the children of God, but we inherit all our Father's abilities, that we are in fact Him. Okay, great. I get it. So what does that mean? We're each omnipotent beings that have the ability of God. Okay, what does that mean? Right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's the next question is, okay, great. What does that mean? And why are we here?
Mm.
And so I came up with three things that a godlike entity would do. Could only come up with three things.
Mm-hmm.
Create stuff. And when I say stuff, I mean like galaxies, universes, the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Creation, destruction, and play games.
Mm.
All I could come up with. I mean, that's breaking it down to the basics. Okay, great. What does that mean? Well, the first question then is, well, what is, I mean, creation destruction is pretty easy to understand, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, creating and destroying stuff. Um, what is a game? What makes a game? So I came up with only three answers of what makes up a game. You have pieces, players, you have turns, and you have rules. That's it. With those three things, you have a game. Okay, so what if we're in a game called Planet Earth? And what does that look like? Well, we know we have pieces because we're it.
We're human.
And according to all the theologies, going all the way back to ancient Sanskrit, we have turns. They're called lifetimes, reincarnation. And so we've got two of the pieces. Well, the third piece, pretty important, are the rules. Because if you and I sit down and play Monopoly and I take all the bank money and all the pieces, it's not a lot of fun, right?
Right.
And then on top of that, if we're souls, we're not gonna pick. Like, for example, do you play tic tac toe or have you?
Yes.
Okay. Do you play it very often?
No.
Why?
It's not that fun.
Why?
You get bored. There's only so many moves that you can make.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, now let's take that into the perspective of a soul, of a God. We're not going to pick simple games to play. We're going to pick really hard ones. Okay, great. What does that look like? So I came up with 8 rules. I'll discuss 4 of them, but the 8 are discussed in detail in the book. And that is rule 1 is that when we play, we agree to put all of our godlike abilities to the side.
Yeah.
Because if we don't, it'd be like entering Monopoly and again, me taking all the pieces and all the properties. Not a lot of fun.
Yeah. Quick game.
So, yeah. So, okay, we're going to enter this game and we're going to agree to put all of our godlike abilities to the side. So that's rule 1. But that doesn't really do much. And now I'm going to take a little side venture before I answer the other 3 rules. Why would a soul or a god want to play the game of Planet Earth? What would be the primary reason for playing this game? I could only come up with one thing.
Yeah. I would say to like learn or to evolve, or because you have nothing better to do, what else are you gonna do? Just sit in the
Kind of.
universe.
Let me see if this resonates. Experience or experience emotion.
That's good.
Because in the Planet of Earth game, we're in what's called a 4th dimensional construct, which means that the primary motivator is time.
Yeah.
In 3 dimensions and below, time doesn't exist. In 5 dimensions above, time is there, but it's no longer the primary motivator.
Yeah.
In order to experience emotion, you have to have the existence of time. So, if we're saying that we're going to enter this game with the primary reason that we want to experience emotions, that means all of them, good and bad, the whole breath, because we're a soul, right? That gets into rule 2, which is if my favorite dog is running across the street and gets run over, and I'm still tied into my godlike abilities, I just go, no, 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 that didn't happen. And so I'm not really going to be experiencing much if I can change anything I don't like.
Yeah.
Rule 2, I agree to forget I ever had them. That, however, by itself, with those 2 rules, is a trap. It's an eternity trap, meaning that if we just use those, a piece of us would be stuck here forever, right? And we're godlike beings, so we're not going to play that game because that makes no sense. Hence the 3rd rule, which is we're going to have turns. And in those turns, before we enter in, we kind of lay out things that we want to do, things that we need to accomplish to get to the next turn, basically how many turns we're going to play, and what we're going to do to finish the game and leave. Okay, that makes perfect sense.
Mm.
And here's where the game starts getting interesting. And that is that when you're in a lifetime, in a turn, you have to accomplish certain things that you've forgotten, that you've agreed to forget. And if you don't accomplish them, you get to do the turn over
Mm.
and over and over until
Mm.
you figure it out and then move on to the next turn, the next turn, the next turn, and you're done.
Mm.
Great. Fourth rule, we're going to be fully invested. In order to really feel and deal with the full aspect of emotion and experience, we're agreeing that we're going to be fully committed to this game while we're in it.
Mm.
That sets up a really interesting game. And it can be made to be incredibly complex by the very nature that we've agreed to forget our what we really are and what we're actually supposed to be doing. And then what we do is we leave breadcrumbs that if we pay attention to, we reattach and start remembering and do what we set out to do. Or if we ignore them, we get to do a lot of turns over.
What are the breadcrumbs that you have found in your
So,
life?
breadcrumbs. How many things as a child did you have happen that you were told you imagined didn't happen or were make believe?
I did not have a crazy, I don't know that I had a crazy imagination. Like I never had a imaginary friend or I mean dreams, right? Like I've had crazy like wild dreams that like how would I have dreamt that as a child? Like how would I have known that or had that thought? And I did have a few things happen as I was older that for sure I'm like that was unprompted in any way, shape, or form. But yeah, in terms of
Well,
being
you
told that
just
they're a make
explained
believe.
signposts.
Yeah. Oh, look at
Yeah, I
you.
mean, even the dreams themselves,
Yeah.
you're attaching to things that are, see, it was funny, you used the word imagination, right?
Yeah.
So children have this fascinating ability to see ghosts, do different things, and then they're taught
That you
it's their
can't.
imagination,
Yeah.
that it didn't happen, that it was a dream, that
Yeah.
you made it up. What if those things are real and everything else is not?
Mm.
What if what we're
Mind
taught is
blown.
the illusion, and those are actually the signposts that reconnect us to what we are?
Hmm. Wow. Interesting.
So, so those are your signposts for reconnecting.
Hmm.
And then fear is another version of getting our attention. And what I
Yeah.
mean by that is there's kind of two types of fear in the world. There's the visceral one where the saber-toothed tiger is chasing us down a hill, and if we don't run, we get eaten.
Yeah.
That one you kind of want to pay attention to in a big way. There's another fear which is all here, which is the fear I can't do something, I shouldn't do something, I shouldn't ask, I shouldn't push, all these different things. Fear is another version of a signpost that enforces doubt.
Yeah.
When we fear something, we doubt. When
Yeah.
we doubt, we keep the illusion in place. When we start seeing through doubt, when we start analyzing it and taking it apart, the illusionary curtains start separating and we start remembering who we really are and what we're capable of doing.
How do you do that though? How do we begin to remove the doubt or explore the doubt?
So, again, fear, anytime you feel fear, minus the saber-toothed tiger,
Yeah.
why am I afraid? What's going on that's causing the fear right now? So let's say you feel like you've really been working really super hard and you would like to ask your boss for a raise
Mm.
and you feel fear. Great. What are the doubts that are underneath the fear?
That he'll say no, that he'll laugh at
Okay.
you,
Okay.
that you'll
Or I
get
could get
fired.
fired.
Yep.
Right.
Worst case
Okay.
scenario.
Right. So where is that coming from?
doubt, right? Uncertainty, not knowing what the answer is going to be. Is he going to say yes or is he going to do these bad things?
Okay, but now go back and forth between the fear and the doubt. So, okay, so the fear is, so the doubt is they're not going to see my worth.
Yeah.
And the fear is I'm going to get fired,
Hmm.
which then goes into the doubt of, well, why am I going to get fired? Why is that fearful? Well, I need to make money. Okay, well,
Hmm.
why? Because I need to pay bills. Okay, but why? Start digging into it. And you start finding that we've been taught that we are individual little specks, we're not connected, and that we are just as important as just what we are and really don't count for much. I mean, I'm paraphrasing different things, different
Yeah.
aspects, but the bottom line is we're kind of taught that we're not connected and small.
Yeah.
When in fact, maybe we're completely connected and co-creators of this entire game.
Hmm.
So now, if you take a look at, okay, if I'm a co-creator of this entire game and I'm here to experience emotion, where does doubt play in that?
Mm.
Where does fear play into that? If I'm not going to get eaten by a tiger, then maybe it's okay I do that. And the next, maybe I close a door or a window, but a whole other set of windows and doors opens.
Mm.
So the idea of doubt, and I'm going to answer your question a couple different ways. So have you ever gone through an NDE?
No,
Okay.
not
Near
personally.
death experiences are fascinating. I went through a couple, so I have firsthand experience.
Mm.
Um, with a near death experience, you either tap into what you really are or you get to go to the next turn.
Hmm.
It's kind of black and white.
Yeah.
So if somebody's had an NDE, they've actually removed doubt from the picture for a moment and tapped into what they really are and changed the outcome. And now they're still here. So NDEs have the ability to tap you directly into the source very quickly.
Wow.
However, I would not suggest that be used
Not trying.
as a method. That would be the equivalent of
Thank
Neo
you.
jumping off the building or jumping
Yes.
from a building to a building and failing. You really, I would not suggest that for anybody.
Please no. Please no.
But there are people that if you talk to them that have had NDEs, their outlook on the way life works and their life works and what they see is significantly different
Yeah.
than most people's perception. So, what's the better way, the softer way, the less deadly way? And
Hmm.
that is to work at it a little at a time. So, what does that look like? Well, first off, to start understanding, A, you have a soul. And you may not fully believe it because there's no actual proof. But Elias, who's the mentor in the Infinity Within, asks Gabe, the main character that you get to follow along with. He says, Gabe says, well, okay, I get that we're talking about a soul. In fact, the very first question Elias asks Gabe in a coffee shop on first meeting Gabe is, do you have a soul? And pretty deep question for never meeting a person, right?
Yeah.
Um, and they talk about it, and Gabe says, but there's no evidence, there's no proof. And Elias says, okay, I get that. What proof do you have that love exists?
Hmm.
Tell me something, give me some scientific proof that love exists.
Mm.
But you feel it, right? You've had it, right?
Yeah.
So what's the difference? And then if you look at it that way, you say, okay, well, if love is not provable, but I can feel it, maybe I need to get in the space of feeling what a soul is
Ooh.
instead of ignoring it.
Huh. Trying to
So, what does
define
that
it.
look like? Well, the interesting question is, do you believe in coincidences?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a word for it. My statement I've said for, well, since I was in my teens is there are no such things as quinkadinks. Why do I say that? My entire life, I can be in a coffee shop, I can be in a restaurant, and some random person I've never met in my life will actually pull out a chair, sit down, tell me their life story or a part of it. We'll have a conversation, and they'll get up and they'll walk away. Now, was that a coincidence? What I found was in actually looking at it from a soul's perspective is that they needed to hear something I had to say,
Yeah.
and I had to hear something they had to say. And through the connection,
Mm,
in a moment of time, we met each other, we shared our information, and we were done.
mm,
And that's why I said the original title of the book was Soul Path, is because as we go through our soul and our path, we make soul connections
yeah.
that are 1 minute, 10 minutes, 1 hour, a week, a
Mm,
month, a year, half a lifetime, a lifetime. We have souls that we meet for whatever period of time we're supposed to meet them for.
mm,
We share whatever information our souls need to share to accomplish our goal for that life, whether we remember it or not. And so the goal here is to maybe take a look at saying maybe these coincidences really aren't coincidences.
I have
Maybe,
say, sorry, I have
yeah.
said, I think that everyone that we meet for a reason and we have something to learn from every single person that we meet. And when I've listened to, because I'm going to ask you the same question of what your thoughts are on a soulmate, but I think that we have sometimes this definition of your soulmate as somebody that you find is in your life in this lifetime for the rest of your life, but it's not. I think that we can have soulmates, and like what you're saying, we can learn, have that whatever we need to learn from them, have that exchange, and they could leave our life, or maybe we meet them really late in life. But I am very curious to hear what your thoughts are on soulmates. Do we have soulmates? Is everyone a soulmate from your definition? Is everyone, it's this
So
soul?
soulmate, what does that really mean? Um, you could argue that somebody that enters your life for 5 minutes is a soulmate for that 5 minutes.
Right.
The typical definition of a soulmate is much more integrated.
Mm.
Usually it has to do with um, long-term intimacy and long-term living together.
Mm-hmm.
And that's perfectly fine. That's very valid. And there's stories of people that have one or more soulmates in their life.
Mm.
However, or in addition to that, a soulmate might be somebody that you've connected to in multiple lifetimes
Yeah.
and that have certain karma things going on that you need to meet them again in this lifetime, either because you want to or need to.
Hmm.
So soulmates are souls that have more than a short-term desire or requirement to be together.
Yeah. Yeah. Which kind of also connects to your whole idea, proposal that we choose to go into this experience of life to learn a specific lesson. And I think it would be cool to be able to choose some people that we want
To
to
play with.
experience, yeah, to play this game with. I think that's really fun.
Yeah,
I think what I
absolutely.
appreciate so much about this whole perspective, and going back to the fear thing, and then I want to get into the healing as well. But I think what I really appreciate about this perspective is, to me, it feels very light. Like it feels like we can almost, even the example of asking your boss for a raise, we get so stuck in the fear that we won't do it. We won't move. We won't switch jobs. We won't leave the relationship because these
Fear.
bodies were kind of wired, yeah, to stay comfortable and to stay out of that, I guess, visceral experience of fear of
Being
like,
eaten.
yeah, if you lose your job, you might not eat, yeah, or you might be eaten. So that, I mean, all of that really does make sense, but the perspective of like really sitting, not really, I feel like we say sit in the fear, but the perspective of digesting the fear and exploring it and seeing it as this this thing, like seeing it for what it is, and then really asking yourself those questions of like, you know, what if this is just all part of it? Or what if I do it also kind of in a way gives you a little bit more control. Like more control over yourself.
At some point, it gives you ultimate control,
Yeah.
depending on how far you take the belief and the remembering.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Jesus did tell his disciples, "You'll do everything I've done and much more." Well, what does that really mean if you take it to its literal sense?
Hmm. You'll do more than create a whole universe.
Yeah. Now,
Whole
granted,
world.
the rules keep us from creating universes necessarily within this universe, but
Right.
there are certain constructs and things that you can absolutely do. So, in the Bible, we talk about the parting of the seas, we talk about instantly healing people, we talk about resurrection, we talk about a bunch of different things, right? Let's take a more material look at it. In the Infinity Within, in my introduction, I introduce four figures
Hmm.
as kind of figures to take a pretty serious look at in how reality can be bent. And my mom loves the book. She's read it a couple of times now, but she absolutely, I mean, she called me after reading it. She said, "What are you doing including this fourth person? This just makes no sense at all."
Yeah.
And in the introduction, I talk about these four people. I talk about Jesus. I talk about the Buddha.
Hmm.
I talk about Eckhart Tolle
Hmm.
and Elon Musk.
Mm.
Now, how does Elon Musk fit in this?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he would stand up and say, "I'm a spiritual leader."
No.
But look at what he's done. Look at all the people that said everything, each of the steps he's taken are impossible and you can't do it. And yet
Mm.
he's turned around and done it.
Mm.
An example would be creating a car company from scratch in today's world. Well, DeLorean tried that and failed miserably, and multiple people have tried that and failed miserably. And yet he's built arguably the largest car company in the last 10, 15 years, 20 years than anybody else currently has. I think
Yeah.
Tesla's bigger than Ford and everybody else right now.
Yeah.
And then, okay, I'm going to land and reuse rockets. Well, NASA's spent billions of dollars. Other countries have spent billions of dollars. Nobody's done it. And yet, in a span of 10, 15 years, he does it and does it daily now.
Mm.
Oh, and by the way, I'm going to have other companies. I'm going to do boring. I'm going to do, which is under the
Yeah.
ground highway systems. I'm going to do AI chips that manage and talk to prosthetics so that people can use limbs from brain power. And then on top of it, he's running five huge companies, and they said nobody can do this. Only you can only have one company. You can't spread yourself this thin. And yet, yeah, he's doing it. I forgot about Twitter and X, right? So he's told over and over again, this is impossible. You can't do this. And he's showing us that's wrong.
Mm.
I'm doing those things.
Mm.
And he's doing arguably a pretty good job of it.
Yeah.
I don't think if that we're small little itty bitty people that we're able to do those things. And I don't think he's any different than any one of us. I think
Mm.
he's tapped more into what he is than a lot of us.
Mm. And use not letting fear. It's very similar, and I don't remember the names. Maybe you do, I have no idea. But the first person to like break the world record for like the 100-yard dash or something, and it took once he did it in under, oh yeah, it was the first person to do it in under 10 seconds. And once that guy did it in under 10 seconds, it took years, like decades. And once that one man, after the next like 7 years, I think like somebody broke it every single year. And the whole story there, I forget where I read this even. It might have been Atomic Habits, but the whole story here is that once we see it, then we believe it. And it's so much harder to believe something when we don't see it.
However, seeing is believing to a point.
Yeah.
because directly in opposition to seeing is believing is all of the training we're given from a child growing up, that it's
Yeah.
not real. I look the other way. It's make believe. It never happened. I'm trained that this thing didn't happen.
Yeah.
So if I sat here and teleported in front of you, there's going to be a set of reactions based on where you are in your connection that's going
Mm.
to happen. One of them is you're going to completely ignore it ever happened. One of them is going to believe, one of them is going to destroy your reality. One of them is going to say, well, I looked the other way and you just walked over there. One of them is going to believe, one of them is going to say, um, that's strange. I don't understand it. And then the very, very little tiny bit will break through that out and say, wait a minute, that person actually did that. That Kris
Mm.
actually just teleported. Ooh,
Mm.
maybe I can too.
Mm.
So it we're trained when even when we see, kind of like you said, well, you believe in coincidences. Well, are they really coincidences? Or
Mm.
is it just the next person breaking the speed barrier?
Yeah.
And then if it's that, then it's how we see and how we interpret those coincidences that directly affect our ability to go do those things.
Yeah. I like that. We need to talk about healing without fixing yourself because that statement is so interesting to me and it's something that's super close to my heart. So, what does this mean? How does this all connect to the infinity within, to the game of life, of experiencing emotions?
So I'll try to answer it a couple ways.
Okay.
Let's jump back to the Bible and Jesus for a second. When you have you spent any time reading that?
Yes.
Okay. Have you have you noticed that when Jesus says he's going to do something, it's instant?
Mm, yeah.
There is no wait, there is no delay, there is no doubt. It
Yeah.
just happens.
Happen.
Okay. Now, granted, it's a book and it's gone through many, many, many iterations, and it all happened a really long time ago, right?
Yeah.
So we can all just kind of say, well, it's a religion and we kind of believe in this stuff. And a lot of folks believe that we should put Jesus on a pedestal.
Mm,
I would argue that that's fine, perfectly fine. However, maybe he didn't want to be on a pedestal. Maybe he just wanted to teach us that, hey, folks, we're all the same. And that's up to each person's interpretation and belief. But when we get to healing, first off, how did we get sick?
mm,
And then, second off, if we're a soul playing a game of emotion and experience, then maybe that was part of this turn. And then maybe if we reattach to remembering part of what we are instead of healing or
mm,
changing ourselves, all we're really doing is remembering that we're connected and deciding that at this point in time, this thing, this call it sickness or damage or whatever, is not really necessary for continuing this turn.
hmm.
So one of the people that my wife studied with Marissa Peer and became an RTT therapist and coach.
Yeah.
Marissa Peer is pretty well known in certain areas, and her she will tell you that she healed herself, and I use the word directly because I wasn't in her. My wife actually trained with her in Los Angeles, directly with her.
Hmm.
And in that training, Marissa evidently had some fairly harmful things happen to her physically and bodily wise.
Okay.
And using her structure of RTT therapy and getting in contact with effectively the source, what we really are,
Mm,
through she uses a form of hypnosis in getting reconnected to our call it the subconscious,
mm,
or what Esther Hicks calls the source,
mm,
and connects to that and says, hey, this is not serving me anymore. I got sick because I needed to get somebody's attention, or I felt bad about something, or something happened that I needed to be sick for. it's not serving me anymore. I don't want this anymore. And she found herself healed.
Hmm.
So it's not fixing ourselves necessarily as understanding first, why did we get sick in the first place? What was the
Mm.
purpose? What was the thing we wanted to accomplish subconsciously or consciously that the sickness helped us achieve?
Mm.
And is it serving me anymore? And can I release the reason for having it?
I think that's where I get hung up because I'm thinking of my back. I've talked pretty openly about lower back, like chronic lower back pain. And I, coming out of it, I can tell you the purpose. But in it, I could
In
not
it,
tell you
it's
the
hard.
purpose. That's where I
Yeah, when
get
you're
hung
in the
up.
middle of it, it
Yeah.
is hard.
Yeah. So to say, like, I don't want this anymore, it's not serving me anymore, to some extent, I would argue that it is because I still haven't figured out the lesson yet.
Right, but yes,
Back, months
I
ago.
would change the words that you said slightly different.
Okay.
Instead of saying, I don't want this anymore, ask, what is this doing now to serve me? Why is this still here?
Wow.
Questions are way more powerful, especially for our subconscious, than statements.
Mm. Wow.
Because
Yeah.
when you ask a question, it gets your whole mind and body and spirit involved in answering.
Mm.
When you say, I don't want this anymore, that's your conscious intellectual telling the body, no, 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 you're doing it wrong.
Mm.
I would argue that's not terribly helpful because the body might not want to listen.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking also in terms of trauma. Like I have a big trauma background. I'm really interested in somatic work in healing, but I don't necessarily think that we're ever healed, but in healing trauma. And that's really interesting too, of what is this response? What is this trauma that is still being held in my body here to show me, or what, how is it serving me? That's actually a really powerful question because we think so negatively of trauma, like I wish I didn't experience this, or this was a terrible situation in my life, or that was a terrible relationship and now it's affecting my
Everything.
current relationships to everything. Yeah, not just even to people. And asking questions, I really love that,
Yeah, it's
rather
huge.
than statements.
It's huge.
Mm.
Um, I've had people say, well, I mean, even my dad, when he was alive, was really ticked off that I called this a game.
Mm.
He said, life is not a game. It's deadly serious. This is just, and he was never a game player. So for him, it was very offensive.
Yeah.
And I understand that some people take offense to this idea because they think that I am simplifying or belittling life or making life frivolous by saying it's a game.
I could see that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Well, I got a couple questions for those folks. And that is number one, have you ever met a football player or more importantly, a European soccer player and how important they think their game is?
Oh, wow.
Have you ever watched a European soccer game and seen how serious they take their game?
Yeah.
And then in the book, Elias, because Gabe asked the same question, he says, if this is a game, why do I need to take any of this serious? I mean, what's
Mm.
the point? Well, rule number four is we're fully invested. So that's point one. And
Mm.
Elias says, well, I get that. Think of it as a game with teeth.
Okay.
It's designed to give us the full experience.
Huh.
When we picked this as a soul, we didn't say we just wanted the roses and the fun stuff and just the niceties. We want the whole deal.
Wow.
Because as a human, we don't like to be hurt. I get that, right?
Mm.
But as a soul doing experience, we really want the whole deal.
Wow.
So now let me extrapolate that another step. How many friends of yours or people that you know go to see horror movies?
Ugh, I can't do it. I
I
don't
didn't
know.
ask you. I said, how many people do you know go?
Honestly, I feel like a decent amount of people can do horror and thriller.
Why?
I have no idea. They like being scared.
Like
They
being scared. They
or
like seeing the things that are kind of not so cool, right? I mean,
yeah.
I don't like horror movies. I never have.
Ugh.
But I have friends that love them, and
Yeah.
the murders and the slashing and the
Yeah.
things. In fact, I remember seeing the movie Braveheart, and even though the concept of Braveheart was great, I felt that they took it way too graphically, where
Yeah.
you'd see the guy's head explode and stuff. And I said, I'm done. I don't need to
Yeah.
watch the rest of the movie because even though the storyline I thought was interesting, the way the producer decided to graphically show stuff is something I didn't need in my life. I didn't want it.
Yeah.
So, but that's an interesting question, right? Why do people, human beings, go see horror movies? Why would a soul want to see horror movies?
Hmm.
When you talk about a human within a human construct, a horror movie's pretty horrible within that construct.
Yeah.
Now take yourself out to this soul being, and what do I want to experience?
Hmm.
And maybe one of my lifetimes was supposed to be a horror movie for the soul.
Wow.
So it's just a different way of looking at things. I'm not trying to belittle anybody's things that have happened that have been horrible.
Yeah.
There are really horrible things that happen. I would say that for those people that are in the middle of it and or especially after it, to look at and ask questions
Hmm.
about what is this doing for me? What is it? What perspective is changing for me?
Yeah.
Or what perspective in life changed for me when I got out of it?
Yeah.
Because I've found pretty much to every single person I've ever talked to that has had horrible things happen and made it out of it,
Hmm.
that when they look back, they say, oh my God, I would not be who I am today without it.
Yeah.
So even though when you're in the middle of it, it's not fun even a little,
Hmm.
but you make it out. And if you choose to look at it as a learning experience, you'll usually find, at least for everybody I've ever talked to, and I mean everybody, for the people I've talked to,
Yeah.
they have shifted their way of dealing with life and looking at life in a dramatic way from that event.
Yeah. Yeah. Which sometimes I think is a good thing to them or a bad thing to them.
Well, I've never seen it be bad. That's the
Really?
interesting thing. Every single reaction from a horrible thing, I mean, even losing limbs and
Yeah.
things, when if they've made it past the harmful part and made it past that gateway and they look back, they say, yeah, I lost my arm and leg, or I lost both the use of my legs, but this is how I look at life now.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. I mean, there are some people that go the dark way, but normally you don't get an opportunity to talk to them because the dark way is usually a one-way path.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. I know. I'm trying to think of like I think what I'm thinking of is the people that are very um that are just very negative that like everything that happens to me is shitty or like oh it's just my luck, I have terrible luck and stuff like that and it's not
Now,
positive.
listen to those things you just said that they're saying.
Yeah.
Say them again and listen to the words.
I have terrible luck and bad things always happen to me
And
or
what
just my
happens
luck.
if we are soul beings that have the ability through subconscious or conscious to control the outcome? And we've just told ourselves and our soul, I have really horrible luck.
Yeah.
Huh, what have I just said for my reality to spin?
Ooh.
What have I just instructed
Yeah.
tomorrow to look like? I
Wow.
always have bad luck. Bad things happen to me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this is just horrible because these things happen to me all the time. Well, what have you just said?
Yeah. What are you bringing in?
What vibration are you operating on? What
Mm.
things are you actually instructing the universe to give you?
Mm.
One of the things when Richard Hicks was alive, and he, do you know Esther Hicks?
I've heard of it.
So
Yeah.
she's the person that
Richard, I don't know.
Oh, come on, brain. Not funnels, but I've lost the word. Uh, she talks to a being called Abraham.
Okay.
She's the
Oh, Abraham
conduit.
Hicks. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, she
She's the
yeah. I
conduit.
know what you're saying.
I'm not. I'm using the wrong word. There's a word for
Yeah.
what she's the medium, right?
Yeah.
Well, her husband Richard has passed away a while back, but he and her were talking in one of their books slash audible versions, and he was saying, "Oh shoot! Now I went too far down that path and lost my thread." Um,
We're thrown off by the word. We're talking
oh,
about the power of the mind, really.
right.
What you're saying becomes that reality. You're creating more of that in your life.
Yes, you're getting close. The connections are getting there.
And then
Basically, he was talking about when he was growing up, there was a period of in his life where everything was going wrong.
mm,
And I think the way he described it is he was out on a street or something and he just said, I give up.
yeah.
I'm I'm going to let whatever happens happen. And I think he used more of a spiritual. I want to say he said he asked God to give him the focus and the alignment he needed.
Wow.
I'm a little bit gray in this area because it's been a while since I've read it.
Mm,
But what he was really doing is he was stepping back from control
yeah.
and reconnecting to what they've now called the source.
Mm,
And what Esther talks about is being in the vortex and being connected to what we really are.
mm,
And from that point on, if I remember correctly, again, forgive me if somebody remembers this differently,
mhm.
but I'm pretty sure that from that point on, like the next day, everything changed.
Wow.
And from that point on, things just happened for him.
Yeah.
But it was he had to come to this point of just complete release of trying to control the minutes and the days and just saying I I'm just going to let it run. And
Yeah.
oh, that's where it was. One of the things they talk about, I'm pretty sure it's in her work, is if you think about, and I'm paraphrasing here, but if I remember correctly, it's think about the universe as your secretary.
Mm,
And let's say that you would like from now on to be financially free.
hmm.
You don't need to envision the steps to get there.
Yeah.
You just need to tell your secretary, this is who and what I am now.
Mm,
And the secretary does all the work.
mm,
The universe goes out. And once you get yourself in that vibrational point of where you know you are
yeah.
and remembering where you should be, the universe is actually always listening,
Mm,
makes the connections and does the things, and the coinkydinks start happening
hmm.
that move that direction instead of the other direction.
Mm,
So all those people that have the bad luck, those are coinkydinks.
yeah.
They're just not nice ones.
Yeah.
When you start seeing them and saying, okay, well, why did this thing happen? Where did this thing come from? I'll give you a perfect example. I had a car accident a long time ago. It wasn't me, somebody else was driving. And it was a friend of mine. And we're going down this road. It was a hardly ever traveled road. And this person from another country T-bars the car and totals it, rips the
Oh,
tires,
oh,
and neither of us had a scratch. And the person that hit us was in a van, and the car I was in was like a Trans Am, and they were in a van, not a Trans Am, a Grand, what was it? One of the smaller cars, anyway, like a Grand Am or a
yeah.
smaller car. And the other person in a full size van, and they drive away.
Okay.
And somebody follows that person and gets the police at their house. And it
Mhm.
turns out that this person from another country actually has insurance and pays for my friend's new car, which her place was she wanted a new car. She really hated her car.
Mm.
And for me, I wanted to find a chiropractor because I'd never had one, and I was interested in a masseuse. And all of a sudden, I
Wow.
now have chiropractic care because of the accident,
Yeah.
and my friend gets chiropractic care, who then attaches her to a masseuse whose name is Gloria, who was my masseuse for 20 plus years. We became great friends.
Yeah.
Now, the milliseconds it took for that intersection of those two vehicles to hit in this kind of out of the way road, if you look at all the things that had to happen
Mm.
to make that happen, and not only to intersect the cars, but intersect it in such a way that we did not have any, we had some muscle stuff, but no
Mm.
serious damage to us at all.
Mm.
And the person had insurance, which in this particular area of the country is unheard of.
Wow.
And she got a new car, and I got a great friend out of it. Was that a coincidence?
Yeah.
So you start unraveling it. You take a look at this thing that happened, and then you start pulling at the things of what happened after that.
Yeah.
What things changed? What start asking questions, and all of a sudden you start finding out that there's some really interesting things with these things.
Wow. I love that perspective. I love that perspective. I think that could be a really cool practice for people listening, especially for the things that have happened to us that maybe we're upset about or we wish that didn't happen to us or that frustrate or hurt or create a lot of grief. I mean, there's so many, everyone has something. So a
Absolutely.
really cool kind of take home assignment. Where can people find your book, Kris? Where can people learn more from you? Where can people connect with you? I feel like you're someone that would be fun to have a conversation with any day of the week, to be honest.
Well, thank you. I've been extremely fortunate. If you go on Google and type in my name or the Infinity Within or both, I
Mhm.
take up about 3 pages.
Yay.
So it's getting a lot of interest.
Yeah.
You can find me on Amazon. You can find me at Balboa. Balboa Press is the company I chose to publish the book.
Okay.
Barnes and Noble, of all places, you can get it at Walmart. Um,
Oh.
you can get it. There's stores in Norway selling it now, in England. I mean, all over the world, which is fantastic.
Mm.
The Audible book version. There's a short story. If we have the time, I'll tell
Okay.
you.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Sure.
this is a story that's somewhat of an ego boost for me. So I'll just warn you up front. I tell it because I'm very proud of it.
Yeah.
Um, I was when I finished the book in July of this year, I really wanted a voice that fit what I was looking for. So
Mm.
I did a bunch of research and found, and I always probably butcher his name, but I found this gentleman named Eduardo Bellini, I believe is how he pronounces it. And he's done over 750 books.
Wow.
He's also an actor and screenwriter. He's in a current TV series, I think, right now. He's award winning on his narration of books. And he's done Eckhart Tolle's books, Dean Koontz, the Dalai Lama. I mean, he's done some pretty significant stuff.
Mm.
And so I finally got a hold of him. And the first thing he kind of said was, well, I'm going to be a little expensive. And I said, I get that. We'll figure that out. And the
Yeah.
second thing he said is, I'm really booked and I probably won't be able to get to this until maybe the middle of 2026.
Wow.
And I said, I get that too. I said, your voice is important enough for me to wait.
Mm.
So he said, okay. So in Audible, the first part of the contract before we can actually like officiate everything is he has to do a 15-minute sample.
Mm-hmm.
So he does the 15-minute sample and gets back to me the next day and he says, Kris, I'm not putting this down. I'm going to finish this week. This is a fantastic book. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit there, but
Yeah.
he put aside the rest of his tasks and finished the book in about a week. And so it's
Wow.
available on Audible. And I would highly suggest if you like listening to books, He's worth listening to in The Infinity Within. He's done a phenomenal job narrating the book and giving it that extra texture that I was looking
Yeah.
for. So,
Mm.
and then the last thing is you can find me at krisland.com, spelled KRISLAND.com. And there's also, I've got a couple websites on the Infinity Within and Infinity Within trilogy, because this actually will have two more books.
Oh, we love that. I thank you so much for coming on the podcast and thank you for sharing that because I love that for you. I love when we have something that like we're looking for this specific thing and then it comes, right? And then it works out. So I really do love that for you. But thank you mostly for having this conversation and introducing such a fun way to look at life and this experience on earth. And I know that it's given me a lot of touch points, and I know that it will give whoever is listening, all of my audience and your audience, a lot of touch points to think about. So I appreciate your time, Kris, very much.
So thank you, Hannah. And just remember, there are no coinkydings.